Alright guys, Papa Pepper here once again. As you know, if you saw like my Being Bluer series where I'm talking about building legacies utilizing Earth's resources, I tend to see everything on my property as something that we can use in some way or another. So the fact that I've got just tons and tons of little rocks is actually a good thing. The fact I got lots of big rocks is a good thing too. So here I'm doing a simple cattle panel fence with some T-posts. Putting a T-post at the end of each cattle panel and one in the middle, so they're about, what are they, 8 feet apart or so. And then I'm actually building columns, rock columns, to make it look a little different, reinforce the thing. You can see them back there behind me. Gives it a nice look. And then I'm running a row of larger rocks on each side of the fence. That way, things that would normally dig underneath, like dogs or wild dogs or coyotes, other stuff, won't have that opportunity because there's a big row of rock there. So to me, it's just part of not only having something that does look nice, and I think it does look nice, but has a purpose and a functionality, and also uses up some of these cool resources like tons and tons of little rocks. So there's a guy on Steemit I know called artonmysleeve, and he asked if I could just do a how-to of how I actually build these things, because he said they look nice, and you may be thinking, well, just because somebody on the internet asks you to do something doesn't mean you should. But this guy's already taken one thing I was talking about, just using junk pretty much and making good use of it. And I took some broken glass and made a window for one of my poultry pen sheds. He did the same thing and used a piece of broken glass or plastic, I forget which, and made a nice cover for one of his aquariums or terrariums. And then also he took my stinging nettle, I did a how-to on just how to make stinging nettle tea for your liquid fertilizer for your plants, and he did the same thing too. So when artonmysleeve asked me to do something, I have some pretty good indication that he's actually serious and not only likes the look of the thing, but wants to know how I do it. So that's what I'll be up to today. So for starters, I wanted to find a good kind of welded wire or wire cage fencing that would be able to work well. So what this is this stuff is about 4 inches tall and about 2 inches wide. And what that's going to do is be able to pretty much secure all the different little stones that I'm going to want to use for this column. Like I said, again, I'm going to be putting the bigger ones at the base of the fence line and then just kind of filling this. So what I do is I count out where I want 12 upright ones. On the corners, I make them slightly bigger, but I'll have 12 upright ones, and then I'll snip, leaving this one empty, cut that 13th one off over here, and then this side kind of cut the 14th one off. So you still got 12 upright ones, and they each got little hangers at the end. And the reason is, when I put them on, I'm going to use those to overlap. So they're going to secure and tie it together. So I'll have pretty much starting here with one, you'll have all the way around to you'll wind up with 12 on the other side, and that'll make a nice column, and it'll give you something to work with on each end with these leftovers to tie it together. So we're really not wasting a lot of fence on this either. Just kind of every 13th upright one doesn't really have a purpose, but get a lot out of it, and it holds them together pretty well. You could go even bigger. I'm just doing 12 because that's what I started with, and I'm keeping it uniform except for going slightly larger on the corners. But if you wanted it even more sturdy, you could make them even bigger, and then you'd have more width for the amount of weight you got there. So here we're gonna go, and I'll show you how I join this together. So here I've got one of the sides on. You can see from above, half it's on. And where it actually lines up with the cattle panel, here I've got number 1 is there. This one's empty, this one's empty. The third one's hooked onto it. This one's empty, this one's empty. Third one again, 2 more empty. And the third one again is hooked onto it. So that still allows me to adjust it at whatever width I want. And then when I put the second one up, I can tie it together to the other side. So it's secure, it's on here, but it's still adjustable where I can slide it to make it the right shape and get it kind of the right width heading around the T-post. So I'll get the other side going, and then we'll take her from there. So here's an example of where two of them overlap where there's not cattle panels. So all I do is I just tie them together and tuck those in there. You can definitely use a tool. My hands are pretty beat up and tough at the moment, but if I just wrap them like that, it holds them together. And then like I said, now at this point I can still adjust and fit the frame however I want it, and then I'll fill it from the top, and once you get the rocks in, then you know it's gonna be a lot harder to move. So looking from above right now, you can see here's my ring, and it lines up pretty good. I like where it is with the T-post. So first thing I want to do is, this T-post is 50 inches tall. These are 48 inches. So what I'm going to do is down here at the bottom, I've got a gap. And at that gap, I'm going to use large rocks to fill it in. So that way when I put my other rocks on, they won't be all falling out the bottom. Then I'll just simply fill it with rocks, and you'd be surprised at how many 5-gallon buckets of rocks it takes to fill one of these. But then, like I said, when you are done, you got this beautiful, nice looking, you know, fence. It's picturesque. We've definitely seen some around here in the Ozarks, and I just kind of came up with a way to make some that would work for me. And like I said, it looks nice, it serves a purpose, it makes the fence a little more rigid. Certain animals are going to be a little less tempted to come through as long as we're not really baiting them. We shouldn't have any issues. I mean, could a bull charge through this fence? Could a wild hog make its way through? Yes, they could. But if there's not a lot of enticement, and if it is pretty solid and looks pretty non-welcoming to them, they should be just fine. So I'm gonna get this one full and let you guys watch that on kind of a fast forward here. But just one way we're trying to make this place look really nice as we begin to build up our pasture more, to have this as an edge, a border to our property, and then get some yuccas and witch hazels, different irises, canna lilies and stuff growing on the outside. It'll look really nice. At least that's the hope. So, all right guys. So if you'll notice from the way I filled that, when I had the bigger ones, I kind of dumped them in by hand. If I dropped them in, they could bend my metal, they could mess it up, that type of stuff. And then if I had a ton of little ones, I just kind of dumped those in all at once. The goal is to have it look pretty uniform, pretty, you know, round, cylindrical from the outside. So kind of tuck some of the pieces in where I want them to be too. I'm not sure how many buckets I really took. About 8.5 or 9 or so, so not too bad. But then it's here, the parts that stick out on top of the T-post here, they all stick up just a little bit. So what I'm planning on doing is running a wire of barbed wire at the top too. Just a line of barbed wire at the top, help deter things like deer and stuff from jumping into my pasture, and we'll see how it goes. But that's pretty much it guys. That's my rock column. That's how I do it. And then, you know, if I do it another 200-300 times, I'll have this whole thing looking nice. All right, Papa out. As always, I'm Papa Pepper, and I'd like to remind you, don't post for free. If you'd like to be part of a revolution in social media, an economic power to the people where users can actually blog for cryptocurrency, then I'd recommend that you check out steemit.com and join the revolution. Papa out.